Hi guys, Rudo here. Welcome. On my video today, I am going to be reviewing the book The Kings That Did Not Need This Queen by Nobuhle and Nyoni. So I've been trying this new thing where I actually read the author's bio so that you guys get to know, get to relate, and get an understanding of the author. So Nobuhle Nyoni is a Zimbabwean writer who grew up in many parts of Zimbabwe. The Kings That Didn't Need This Queen is her first book to be published. She has sharpened her writing skills over the years through her blog titled UBU. I think now it's called Becoming Ubu, and where she touches on life experiences, sex, sexuality, and relationship. And just to give you guys a synopsis of the book. So the book, what she says about the book is, I love the idea of being loved by a man, don't we all? The idea of being swept off my feet and being made to feel like the queen my mother said I was. So for every time I was told I was too young to be in a relationship, I grew impatient. The time never came when it was okay, so I began dating. But you know what the problem was? I didn't know who to date, how to date, and why to date. I didn't know when too much was too much. I saw red flags and turned them into blankets instead of running for my life. I stayed when I should have left. I smiled in times I should have been crying. I defended my fleshly desires instead of my mental health. My heart got broken, I got abused, and I broke my own heart too. It took 11 years to realize how broken I was and to learn of the reasons why I became who I became. I needed to tell the story to save a young woman, a mother to be, a father, and a father to be. And so I wrote The Kings That Didn't Need This Queen. So in the self-help book, the author Nobuhle, she talks about how in relationships you kind of get lost due to so many different things. So what I like about the book is she takes accountability, and that is something very new when it comes to women. Obviously, as we grow up, I'm learning to take accountability of what I've done, what I'm doing, but how she talks about through the years, it took her 11 years to get to this point, so it's like a journey. But I like how she actually saw how she was wrong in certain parts of the relationship. So I'll try and read parts of the book, the points which she makes, because after every chapter, I should call it, after every chapter or after every story about a certain king, she kind of gives tidbits of how she did not work out, what she saw, the red flags. And I know we're all aware of certain red flags. I know we all have boundaries, but I think we've talked about red flags so many times and so much that we forget about the green flags. So after I've talked more about this book, I'm just going to read some of the green flags that I've heard people talk about. And there's actually this article which I'll read to you guys, so that also in looking for red flags, also look for the green flags, because I think we're so stuck on looking at the bad things that people do, we kind of overlook the good that they do. And this is not saying I'm not trying to say overlook things like abuse or things that are super detrimental, but there's certain things, I think, minor things, when someone does something, maybe because they might be in a bad mood, we kind of completely cut them off. And I think in this generation, dating is super hard. It's super hard because I think we don't give each other the space to grow, the space to explain ourselves, especially with this ghosting culture. I hate ghosting. It's the worst thing anyone can ever do. I think ghosting is emotional abuse. It really is. Rather you just tell someone you don't want to talk to them rather than ghosting them. So she actually talks about a ghosting king, a guy who went they were in a relationship but they went for days without talking. And for me that doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I'll read some of the things that she learned. and how she was accountable, and how she began to heal, how she began to see how wrong she was in certain parts in the relationship. I'm going to read the coins. Those are the tidbits, like after every chapter, and this one is after the club king. So this is a guy she met at the club, and then weeks later he slid into her DMs on Twitter, and then they started dating. But then the guy was cold towards her, and when he was shutting her out, he was ignoring her even when he was online, and he was quite mean. I've never been in this kind of relationship, and I hope I will never be in one of them. But I don't understand, like, when someone is dating someone and then after they start dating, when they're in the relationship, they start being very mean, very cold. Like, why don't you just break up with the person? I don't really understand. It's like, why are you burdening yourself? If you don't want the person, just tell them you don't want them, rather than making them go through the most, ignoring them. I really don't understand it. But anyway, so I'll read what she took from that relationship. I belittled myself. I started to hate looking in the mirror because I let myself believe I was the reason he would not love me. He never opened his mouth to tell me I was ugly or too broke for him. Never. Yet here I was, telling myself it was my weight, my patchy skin, and not so rich self that drove him to drift away. Chances are it was my constant need to hear that he thought I was beautiful that tired him. It could have been the lack of confidence that lived in me, that made me a drag. Learn to love yourself, walk tall daily, and brag about yourself. You are amazing as you are. If communication is poor from day one, then you know that trouble is brewing. If the effort is one way, then only one of you is in a relationship. This is a truth that I learned the hard way. It applies in friendships too. For whatever reason, we think the hard to get men are the cool ones until they remain hard to get, and we break. If you're not important to the next person, then leave it. There is no working for someone to rate you. It never works. I did it all, gifts and all. I drowned. If you leave someone because you were hurt, the reasons you were hurt are not going to fly out the window. People change, but this is very rare. I was not wrong for choosing myself for a change. Do not feel bad for choosing yourself. I know there is that guilt that comes with that choice, but do it for yourself. I always say protect your peace at all costs. It is important. Walking away may hurt, and there will always be the what ifs playing in your head. Mute them. It is going to be hard to transition from being with someone to being alone. It will be worth it. Rather have peace than cry daily in the name of love. Yeah, so this was after the club king, who was quite cold to her. And I like how she said it could have been maybe her constantly wanting to be told that she was beautiful. And I think this is when the love languages come to play. I'm not sure if you who are watching are quite familiar with the love languages. So there are like 5 of them. There is gifts, acts of service, quality time, words of affirmation, and what's the 5th one? Physical touch. Yes, physical touch. So I think, from what I've read here, I think like her love language was actually words of affirmation, but maybe because he didn't understand, he couldn't tell her or be there for her the way she understood. But at the same time, I think most women, we kind of have different insecurities, and I think when we found someone who we're in a relationship would want that person to reassure us, to tell her, oh no, you're beautiful, oh no, you're amazing, you're great. And I don't think there's anything bad with that, but I think maybe at times we kind of end up relying more on them and not seeing it for ourselves. And I think it's very important, like what she said, that you need to understand that you're whole, that you're amazing as you are. I think it's very important to understand that even when you feel like you're not, there's no one who's perfect, We all have our flaws, we all have insecurities, and I think it's very important for you to start telling yourself first before you like want to hear it from someone else. This applies to myself also. And I think if you believe it yourself first, when someone tells you, you actually believe it. Because I think sometimes, even as girls, like if you're in a relationship and your boyfriend or your husband or someone tells you that you're actually very beautiful, you're like, are you mocking me? You know, it's like there's that sense of like thinking that maybe they don't really mean it. So I think it's really important for you to believe that first for yourself before you actually seek validation from someone else, even if it's your partner. Because I think sometimes we kind of burden people with our own insecurities, and I think it's amazing if you find someone who can actually sit down with you, who's in a relationship with you, and they'll be able to talk you through it. But I think it's important for you to know it for yourself first. But yeah, so next chapter. The next one I'm going to read is the tidbit, or the coins rather, after the Catholic King chapter. The Catholic King was a guy, a very sexy guy, I must say, that she met, and he was strong character, ambitious, hardworking, dimension tall. And they had differences because they went to different churches, and she talks about what she learned from, you know, dating someone who you have different values with. Okay, iron out these details in the beginning. Don't wait till you are at the peak to talk about such serious things. There are things love cannot fix, such as religion, the number of children you want to have. Will you both be working? Change in dress code because of the bans. The moment you establish that you're serious, just clear these finer details because they're a big part of your lives. Do not be me. Secondly, you cannot change a person. It is not your job to change a person. This is just setting yourself up for disappointment. The whole time I was with him, his anger issues never changed. No matter how I smoothed talked to him, he was just an angry person. Do not wake up and try to play God. Let God be God. Today he is a changed man, but it is not because of me or any woman for that matter. He dealt with it all on his own. We are all broken. We need a shoulder to lean on from time to time, but our brokenness is not for humans to fix. How can a broken person possibly fix a broken person? We need a higher power. Whatever that power is for an individual, let it fix them. Do not give yourself the task to fix a person. You will find yourself resenting them day after day because they will resist you. Remember, as humans, we do not want another human seeing our weakness and trying to fix us, especially if we have told ourselves we are not broken. There is an immediate feeling of judgment. Then you get frustrated with every brick they throw your way. Either you love them as they are, or you leave if you cannot tolerate the person they are. I say this because there is no perfect person out there. So, I know as women, myself included, we have this thing of wanting to fix things. We're fixers. I think it's something in us. And I don't know what it is, but we kind of have this nurturing part. I think it's like in our DNA. We kind of like nurturing things. And I think also trying to fix people comes from there, because like what she's saying, like when he was having like this tantrums, when he was like throwing fits, like she was trying to like talk to him smoothly, like, you know, it's okay babe, like we'll get through this. But you can't fix a human being, you know. He's like a whole individual human being with his own brain, with his own problems, you know. And I think as women, we kind of need to like step away from that, trying to fix a human being, because I think we have this thing of like, how do I explain this, of like I can change him, you know. And I believe that, like, when I was young, I thought like, you know what, if someone really loves you, they will change for you, you know, you can help them to change. Yeah, that's a no. You know, people change when they want to change, and you can't force it on them, because you also have to understand that people come from different backgrounds. So what's good for you might not be good for someone else. But I think we really need, as women, to like move away from that thing of trying to fix people. There's nothing wrong with helping someone who's going through a difficult situation, but I think the problem comes when we actually try to fix the person for them to be what we want them to be, and we kind of don't give them the allowance, or we don't give them the freedom to be who exactly they are. We don't get to experience the person for who they are. So I think that's what I've learned from this chapter. Like, certain things you need to discuss, like what she said about religion, like your beliefs, like things that like hold the foundation of your relationship, because I think most people will leave that like until later when things are like super serious. Then we're like, oh, by the way, which church do you go to, what do you believe in, like, are you political, which political branch or party do you support, like what are your thoughts on this, what are your thoughts on that. And I think these are things that you need to like discuss earlier on. I know they're kind of like, they seem like too serious, because at the beginning of the relationship we all like, butterflies, sweetie palms, but I think we also need to talk about these things, because like they will help you to understand if the person is not for you, or if they're for you, and also if you can take on what they have to offer, and in the same time not forgetting yourself. So I really like this, how she's like talking about these important things and like advising young women, myself included, when it comes to relationships, to be very aware of what exactly you're getting into. I will read the last chapter, which is the chapter 11, and in this chapter she's talking more about why they didn't need her, because the book is called The Kings That Didn't Need This Queen, and this is where like all the things come out. So now you guys, you hear for yourself. So the first 9 kings came after the 10th king. They did not need me because I was stuck in a zone where I was hoping to make a replica of what I'd lost. I was trying so hard to relive the fantasy I had of my life with the 10th king through them, and did not even realize it. It took me 11 years to realize how broken I was by that one relationship that did not turn out the way I wanted it to, how I did not deal with the pain it left me in. I played strong and moved on without dealing with anything. These 9 kings might have done me wrong, but it takes 2 to make a relationship work. In most, I tried to pin them to king number 10. As soon as they did something I believed would have been the case with my knight, I began to drift. I tolerated poor communication because I was afraid of losing another person to the same problem. King number 10 had the same problem, so maybe I should be the one to get used to it. I wanted to normalize this, yet it was hurting me. The other thing that put me back is that I never forgave myself for hurting him. Maybe that is why I wanted so bad to get him back. And when I failed, I felt like a failure. The guilt that burned in me burnt each king until it ran out. I was angry at them for doing me wrong, but I was also angry at myself for destroying what could have been with the 10th king. I found my anger piling up because I could not fix any of my relationships, and it felt like it was my fault. If I could have been the reason for my perfect reason falling apart, then I was the reason for the rest of them too. All 10 kings didn't need me because I didn't know what a man was for. I didn't know how to pick a man, what I had to look for exactly. I lost my father at the age of 7. I love him so much, and may his soul rest in peace. When he passed on, I was so young, I grasped close to nothing from him. God gave me another father in the form of my uncle, my father's brother, but he was not there for me. And when he was, he did not make the effort to build a relationship with me. I do not blame him much, because I guess his generation believes that provision is the equivalent of being there for your children. I will never take away what he did for me. I would be evil. My uncle always wore a straight face. For any time he walked into a room, he would shapeshift into dummies. We would shapeshift into dummies. For any time the gate opened as we got home, we would disappear, and he would find just his wife, my aunt, whom I call mother, waiting for him. He never sat down to talk about anything other than school. That was him. I know he cared, but I guess he didn't know how to build a relationship with his children. I never got applauded for any of my achievements. My uncle was stuck on me expelling at school, that he missed the obvious pointers of who I was. I won an award once for best public speaker. It was not enough. I went on and studied fashion. I came out top of my class. It still was not enough. Instead of celebrating me, he sent me a text message telling me to stop being mediocre. This made me yearn for approval. I needed approval from just one man, just one, to look at me and say you're great and well done for this. I searched for it in every king, and sometimes I would get it and feel at home. I stayed in emotionally abusive relationships so that I would at least experience the approval. I thirsted for it, and so when I got it, I was not going to let it go. I found myself normalizing verbal and emotional abuse just because I wanted to hear a man's voice tell me that I was beautiful. Never heard that from my father figure. I wanted to hear a man tell me that I was strong and I was great at what I did because I'm a creative. Everyone else saw it except my father figure. I wanted to hear a man tell me that I was going to be great in life, to work hard and develop my skills, and that I was enough for me. I had a hole in my heart that needed to be filled, and I thought that maybe being with a man would help. It never did. I thought I knew how a man should treat me. I knew nothing. I took what came my way and wanted to make it work. I made excuses for every king that treated me wrong, because men are men. Men cheat, so just stick around until he comes around. I believed this at one point. You can make a man into who you want him to be. Another lie I held onto. What was a cheat when he approved of me, when he thought I was beautiful, when he acknowledged the talent that I had? What was an abusive man when he supported me and motivated me to chase my dreams? I wish my father figure had taken time out to teach me more on this. I wish he had put in the same passion in my social life as he did in my schoolwork. Many of us have been deprived of the treasure that is learning from our fathers. To every father out there, please be there for your children. Let them respect you and not fear you. There is a big difference. Take them out on dates, talk to them, give them the floor to be open with you, encourage them, lift them up when they are down. Just be present. Success is a beautiful thing, but don't let that be your main focus. Let your love be known. Let your prayers be heard. Let the hugs overflow. The words of love be heard. To every king, thank you. Wow, so that was chapter 11. Quite heavy, I must say, because of this, especially the part about the father figure thing. I think most women, girls who did not have a present father figure, or maybe they were there but they were just there financially, I think they end up looking for validation in men that they date. People call them daddy issues, like you're looking for approval, and I think it's a real thing. I don't know if you guys have watched there's this series called Modern Love. I think it's on Amazon Prime, but I think you can find it on other websites. And there's an episode about this young girl. She was looking for a father in this man, but this man thought that she actually liked him. And I think it really runs very deep. At times you don't even realize that's where it stems from. So I think like this need of approval, just wanting like a man present. And I totally relate to this thing of like fathers wanting to be feared and not respected. My dad is like, he was a present dad, but he was not as affectionate, and he did not accept someone who's mediocre. I remember this at the time. My brother came home and he had 5 points. That was like in primary school. Like the highest is 4 points. He had 5 points, but he was so afraid to come home because he thought he had failed. And I think about that, and I also think about how like I'm never really satisfied with what I do. In the sense that like if I do something huge, like something some people would say, oh my gosh, that is incredible, like that is something like big to me. I'm like, but is it? Because I think it stems from like when I was like in high school and I became the head girl, and when I told my dad, like that was like super big, my dad was like, oh okay, and then I think he didn't even come. So I think like things like that, now that you've grown, you kind of like start looking for them in other people, especially when you're dating. And I think there's a lot of healing that needs to happen. And also I think African parents need to talk to their children, like not just talk to about school, about work, but really listen to them, like their feelings, what they think, you know, their views. Because I think the older generation, like the generation of my dad, he was like a war vet, so I can understand like he couldn't give something he did not have. But at the same time, I think there's still time maybe with my younger siblings. But I think now that most of us, like my sister, my brother, we're quite grown, I think we've come to the space where we're like, should we, you know, what's the point? So I think like we're learning to heal ourselves. And I think this book is actually like opened my eyes to like certain things that I've been doing in certain relationships, like wanting validation, wanting like this, like wanting attention. Not that there's nothing wrong with wanting attention, but at times you need to understand why exactly you need this kind of attention. And yeah, that's African lit for you, man. It really speaks to you in that way. But anyway, as I said before, we talk a lot about red flags, but today I found a post, an article, yeah, whatever it is, and it talks about green flags. And I just wanted to share with you guys, if you're in a relationship, if you're getting into one, if you're thinking of getting out of one, maybe these are some things you might want to think about, because I think we talk a lot about red flags. We don't really talk about the green flags. And when I read this, I was like, I really look at the bad things and I overlook the good. And there's so many good things, like let's say in certain people, but we're so quick to want to cut everyone off. So yeah, I hope this will also help you guys. So the green flags. Number one, someone who has a life outside of the relationship. So like someone who's not overly obsessed with the relationship, like 24/7 they want to talk to you. I'm guilty of this. I really need to change this. But yeah, someone who has a life outside of the relationship. So like they're an individual, you know, they're themselves, you know, they also have something going on besides the relationship. Number two, someone who is self-aware, someone who's like, I think this is quite self-explanatory, but someone who's self-aware. Number three, someone who can provide assurance to people they care about. So this doesn't only apply to you, but it also applies to people in their families, you know, like family and friends. People will like assure you. Number four, someone who can laugh at themselves. Number five, someone who can that's number four. Number five, someone who isn't quick to jump to conclusion and instead asks questions. I think it's very important for someone to ask questions. And I know at times people will be like, oh, you ask too many questions. I think I would rather have someone ask me too many questions than jump to conclusions. This applies to a relationship, by the way, not like just anyone who's just like being intrusive and asking too many questions. But this is like applying to, like, let's say a friendship, a deep friendship, or like a romantic relationship. And number six, someone who remains respectful during conflict. So I know like during arguments, people like shout, they say things they might not mean. But someone who respects you, who remains respectful respectful during conflict. Number 7, someone who respects your boundaries. Someone when you tell them, oh, I don't like this, they actually, they respect your boundaries. Number 8, someone who communicates their boundaries. Someone who actually tells you that, I don't like this kind of things, who communicates the boundaries, who just doesn't assume you would know the boundaries. Someone who actually tells you, I don't like this, can you stop this, can you not talk to me like this, can you not touch me like this. Number 9, someone who can communicate well in general. So I feel like at this age, 25 and above, 24, even 20 and above, I think it's very good to work on your communication skills, because that's ghosting business, man. I don't know what to say. I just think at this age, really, just communication shouldn't be something that you like. I know like people communicate differently, but I just feel like ghosting is very unnecessary. Just say you don't want to talk to me rather than ghosting. And I think it's important to understand how the other person communicates, so you don't have to like end up fighting. Sit down and be like, okay, let's talk about this. Tell me exactly what you mean and how you mean it, so that I can understand. I think it's very important for us to rather have a super long discussion, like venting out and talking about how exactly to handle this, rather than just dismissing it. Number 10, someone you can be vulnerable with without worrying if they will throw your vulnerability in your face. So like, let's say during a fight, you've told someone that you're insecure about something, and then like throw it in your face. That's not cool. 11, someone who treats people with compassion and kindness, particularly people who can do nothing for them. So this is just someone who's kind in general, who doesn't always expect people to do something in return. Number 12, a good work ethic in general, and how a person interacts with co-workers. So that's important, how they interact with their co-workers. You can also see the kind of person they are. Someone who exposes you to new opportunities without fear of you getting ahead of them. So that's like in a relationship. Let's say if you're dating someone who shows you new things, who tries to help you to grow, and who is not afraid that you surpass them. Let's say when it comes to like work or anything in general, like someone who's secure in themselves, who doesn't think that if you shine or if like something great is happening to you, it's taking away from them. Someone who celebrates your wins. Someone who understands that different viewpoints exist outside of their own. So that's someone who actually understand that even if you're in a relationship, you have different viewpoints, you don't always have to agree. Personally, I wouldn't want someone who I always agree with. Like, I would be thinking, why are we like agreeing on something? That would be like a red flag for me. I know it's silly, but yeah. So like, let's say like agreeing on every single thing, I don't know, but yeah. Someone who can keep secrets and keep confidential information private. Someone who recognizes your potential and supports you with achieving it. A person who doesn't see your success as a threat. I think this is very important. I myself is someone who like attains to like want something like super big. I wouldn't want someone who's threatened by my success, because that just means they're just going to try and dim my light. So I wouldn't want someone who's intimidated by me. A person who respects autonomy. Someone who can read and recognize your body language as well as your silence. So someone who can understand that when you're quiet, it doesn't always mean like you're angry, or that you like, sometimes there's a happy silence, you're just quiet, you don't want to talk. And I think it's important for someone to actually read your body language. Like, let's say if you're not in the best of moods, they can actually read your body language. Someone who wants to experience your joy with you. Someone who puts in the effort to get to know you. Someone who can be patient with you. A person who recognizes the season you're in and respects a shift in your priorities. I think this is super important, because I think priorities change over time, you know, different seasons, different priorities. And I think it's very important to have someone who actually understand that, okay, at this point in time, this is something that is super important to this person. I will just support them and I will not feel like it's taking away from me. I'm actually talking about myself here, but anyway. But yeah, I think that's very important. I also need to learn that. A person who has a track record of healthy and long-standing relationships. So this doesn't only apply to like romantic relationships, but also friendships. I think you can also tell a person how they keep the relationships based also on their friendships. Like, I think it's important to have someone who has friends. Seeing a person work on themselves in an intentional way. So let's say if someone says they want to change, they should change for themselves, not change for a person. And I think it's very good to see like when they're doing it for themselves. Where am I? 27. Someone who respects your time. So let's say if someone promises you that they're going to be there at a certain time, or they're going to call you at a certain time, someone who respects your time and then literally show up. I think it's a turn off, or rather it's quite disrespectful if someone doesn't respect your time. They say they're going to do something at a certain time and then they don't, and then you like have to chase them up. 28. Someone who speaks about the ex in a civil way. Yeah. Someone who can take accountability and doesn't see themselves as perfect. I think this is very important. I know like so many, I think we also need to look at this in another light, because I think other people, they kind of cover their red flags by saying, oh, no one is perfect, I'm not perfect, you know, which is understandable. But at the same time, it's very good to take accountability. Like in the book, she was taking accountability, and I think that's very important. Number 30, someone who can say sorry and display changed behavior. And I also think it's important for someone, when they apologize, to say exactly why they're apologizing. I never understand the apology of saying, oh, I'm sorry for everything that I've done. What exactly have you done? Like, be specific so that I know exactly what you're sorry about. A person who listens to understand. Someone who displays emotionally intelligence. I think that's very important. A person who has taken time out to consider being in a relationship with you, your needs, and whether they have the capacity to fulfill them. I think this is also important, because in this talking stages, man, people be out here thinking we're already in a relationship. And I think it's important, if you're talking to someone, for you to like take time to really think, do I want to be in a relationship with this person? Will I be able to attend to their needs? And do I have the capacity to fulfill them? Someone who makes the effort to learn your love language. Like I said before, the 5 love languages. Someone who wants to love you the way you understand. Someone who can pause and understand your triggers. I think this is also important. Someone who can forgive and doesn't hold things against you. Someone who doesn't just tell you what you want to hear. Yes. Someone who has their own mind. Yes. Someone who loves themselves and knows themselves. I think this is very important. And what I've also learned about the thing about loving yourself, I think it's like a constant journey. You just don't arrive all of a sudden like, here I am, I love myself. I think like, just like healing, you know, it takes time, but you need to reassure yourself. People who encourage you to speak and who don't talk over you. This is very important. Someone who actually listens when you're talking, because I know there are certain people, when you're talking, they're just starting talking from nowhere. They don't really give you the allowance to speak, and I think that's very important. Someone who is secure and confident in themselves without being arrogant. I think that's very sexy, actually. Someone who is teachable, someone that can teach you, someone who cares, but someone who cares about the interior, not just the exterior. So someone who cares about their well-being, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and who just doesn't care about the outside. So someone who's like, you know, good. Someone who's teachable. Someone that can teach you. I like learning a lot of things, so definitely someone who cares about, oh, I already said that one, sorry. Someone who cares about the interior, not just the exterior. Oh yeah, I did say that one. Friends who clap when you're not looking. Someone who knows how to have fun. I think I don't know how to have fun, but I'm learning. A person who is comfortable being alone. Someone who has worked on healing the past trauma. So those are the 48 green flags. I'll attach them below, so that if someone wants to go over them again, they can actually read through them. But I think it's very important that as much as we talk about the red flags and being self-aware, we also reminded of the green flags, because I'm sure like there are certain people like we have all these green flags, and I know to every single person we all have like certain red flags. But I think with this book, it actually opened my eyes to actually understand. And if you're someone who's going through a heartbreak, someone who actually wants to improve in this area with the relationships, getting to know yourself, the healing past traumas, I think this is a very good book for you. And it's a good read, and it's not a very big book. It's quite small actually, and I think the bad thing about this book is that it's small. I think like I would have wanted to read more about it, but I'm just glad that she actually took the time to read this book, because I think we kind of need this kind of books, and she's not like telling you that you need to do this and do that and do this. She's actually talking from her own experience, and I think that's actually very important. So yeah, guys, until next time, goodbye, and please keep safe.